Hello everyone, and welcome to Built by Redbeard. Today I'm going to catch you up to speed on what it's taken so far to swap this Cummins and Allison into my Humvee. If you had seen my first video, then you know my starter was going out and that I really wasn't planning on putting any money into a part that I wasn't going to be able to reuse for the build, so I figured it was time to start this swap. So I pulled the truck in so that way I could get to work on stripping it down so that way I'd be able to remove the body. And once she was ready, I made some body stands out of 4x4s and 2x that I had laying around the shop. And then I just went ahead and pulled the body off in my driveway. After I got the body off, I then rolled the chassis back into my shop so that way I could finish removing the drivetrain from the chassis. And I gotta say, it's a lot nicer to pull an engine and transmission out of a chassis when there's no body in your way. And at this point, the front cross member on my chassis was damaged and there wasn't going to be any better time than now to replace it. Along with that, half of my half shaft boots were split apart, so I went ahead and I rebuilt all my half shafts with new boots and fresh grease. Now there's plenty of info out on the net about the Humvee spindle nut issue, and you should check for this issue when you get your truck to drive it and not wait until you build it. So, since I was building my truck, I decided to pull the back cover off my geared hubs to see which spindle nuts I had. And of course, I had the old style nuts that aren't safe, so I decided to upgrade them since I was going to have a lot more power and speed available at my disposal. But to check to see which spindle nuts you have, it's pretty simple. There's a drain right in here on the bottom of the geared hub. You can pull to drain your oil out. And then you just got to remove these 4 bolts to take your back cover off, and you'll be able to see what spindle nut you have. And since all the geared hubs were getting fresh oil, I decided I'd go ahead and drain the differentials as well, so that way they get fresh oil too. And then I just went ahead and prepped and repainted the frame. And while I was having fun driving my Humvee around for the year and a half or so that I got out of it, I was collecting parts that I knew I was going to need for my Cummins and Allison swap. And during this time, I was able to find a good running 12-valve Cummins out of a 92 Dodge 1-ton pickup truck. And as you can see, it didn't run worth a crap under throttle, and it wouldn't run at all just to try to idle. I did what I could to try to fix it, but in the end I ended up having to just take the injection pump off and get it rebuilt. And then once I knew I had a good running engine, I went through and started replacing all the gaskets to fix the oil leaks that it had and hopefully prevent some future oil leaks with the old gaskets. I got the engine lifted up and set in place using a set of motor mounts from Mountain Machine. And they were another good group of people because as I was talking to them, they gave me a heads up about lowering the carrier bearing along with putting a 3/4 inch spacer on the lower radiator mount to make clearance for everything. I then proceeded to install my transmission adapter plate and flex plate that I got from G-Force Performance. And from there, I was able to bolt the Allison and transfer case that I got out of a 08 Chevrolet 1-ton pickup, I believe it was, to bolt right up. And then I was able to set my pinion angle so that way I could make my transmission cross member. And to keep it simple, I just used the factory cross member and mounts. I just modified them to work with the Allison. I moved them back about 4 inches on the frame. To warn you, while this was the quickest and easiest way to do the transmission cross member, you will no longer be able to fit your factory fuel tank in place because the mount is sticking above the frame and you no longer have enough space for the tank to fit. And as I didn't mention earlier, when I was setting the engine in, you can no longer run your factory belt tensioner because it hits right here on your frame. Along with that, but your factory water pump inlet sticks straight out here and comes to the outside of the frame where your radiator hose comes in on the inside of the frame. So I had to make a custom tube here. I can't really show you because it's buried now, but 90 degrees back and then at 90 degrees down so it can go straight into the radiator hose. And as you can see in the picture, you can just barely see the bottom of my hose that I made to line straight up with the radiator hose. And then to take care of the alternator and AC problem and the belt tensioner, I had to make a custom bracket setup. I used an alternator off a 06 Chevy 3/4 ton with a LS engine in it, and then factory AC compressor off the 92 Dodge. And for the belt tensioner, I just made a simple little sliding bracket idler pulley setup that you could tighten down with a bolt. And to brace the top part of the mount where the AC compressor is, I used some all thread and some spacers to make support bolts off of the thermostat housing. And if you're going to do this, this is also a good time to replace your thermostat because it's going to be a pain to get to it later. From there, I decided to pull all my valve covers off so that way I could get them painted and put the new gaskets on them. And I also wanted to check and set my valve lash. After that, I bolted the radiator back up. I pulled the old turbo off so that way I could drill and tap for a EGT probe. Then I mocked the new turbo in place, and then I also put a transfer case brace on because I heard if you get a vibration in those transfer cases that they will split in half. So to be on the safe side, I figured better now than never. And as I had the body on the stands outside, I patched some holes in the bodywork, and then I went ahead and I undercoated the whole thing with this sound deadener. So then I decided it was time to put the body back onto the chassis. And to be able to do this, I had to go with a 3-inch body lift, and I got one from McKellis Body Lifts. I hope I said that right. And it's just some 3-inch blocks that you get for the body mounts, the hood mounts, and then they also send you the spacers for the factory fuel tank if you're going to reuse it. So in order to put the body back on the frame, I decided to recruit some help from my brother to make it easier setting the body in place and being able to line everything up. And we ended up being able to set the body into place and getting everything lined up pretty easily. Well, as soon as I got the body bolted down to the frame, I started feeling accomplished, like I was going to be able to see the truck back on the road soon. Well, not soon, but sooner rather than later. So we got the truck rolled back into the shop, and I bolted the turbo back on since I knew it was going to be out of harm's way now, without a body hitting it as it came onto the chassis, along with putting the oil drain tube back on. And then I proceeded to make my brackets so that way I could mount my intercooler and transcooler and AC condenser and bolt the power steering cooler back on as well. So with getting you caught up to speed on where I'm at with this Humvee build, I hope you'll continue to follow along with me as I give you video updates as I continue to make progress on it. I thank you all for watching, and I hope I get to see you on the next episode of Built by Redbeard.